Hello, and welcome to Impacto AZ, a podcast dedicated to centering the Latinx voice on the important issues of the day. I'm Jonathan Higuera, your host, and I'm here along with my co-host, Juan Rodriguez. Today's guest, and we're so excited to have her, is the newly named chair of the Arizona Democratic Party, Charlene Fernandez. Charlene, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. Very happy to be here.
Yes, we're excited for what we're going to talk about and to learn more about you as well. And in fact, that we had a question. We were going to jump right into politics off the bat, but Juan and I decided before you came on that we really want to know a little bit more about you, so that our viewers get a sense of where you come from, where were you born, what were the markers in life that led you down this career in public service. So, and while I say that, let me just add, she has had an outstanding career in public service. She has not only been a state legislator, but she's also served as a Democratic leader of the Arizona House of Representatives. She's also worked as a staff member for the late Congressman Ed Pastor, and you were also on the staff of former Governor Janet Napolitano at one time.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm sure there's numerous other things that she's done, but we're going to keep it at that and let her tell us a little bit about herself.
Well, yeah, I've got rural roots. I was born and raised in Yuma County. Now it's a little bit larger, so I don't know if anyone considers it rural, but it was very rural when I was growing up. Went through public schools in that area and never had any plans of leaving there. My friends left for college. I didn't have the means to do that, although I was a good student, very active in school. I was on the student council. So I think that just runs through your veins. And I have thought about what got me excited about politics. My brother and sisters were never in. I mean, they vote. They always tell me, well, we're involved. We vote. We won't miss an election. But, my dad used to get the LA Times. We could never figure out why he had that LA Times delivered to our front door every day. And then on Sundays, it was this big, thick paper. So he and I would go through it, and I just loved it because it was filled with so much news. But this was during the time of the walkouts in LA.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if that spurred my interest, just got those, political fires burning. But after I graduated from high school, didn't attend college, worked and got married, had 3 kids, and then realized how important, a college education would be for me. I always wanted to teach, and that's what I was going to study. So I went back to our local community college, and community colleges, I have to give a shout out to them because they open their doors to everyone and anyone, and they're there for all those people that need that second chance.
Yes, they do, and they were there for me as well at
Isn't
community
that
college.
wonderful?
So yes,
Yes.
props to community colleges.
And then, one step even further and better is that our university came into our area. And so I went to NAUMA and got my degree in education. But during that time, I was volunteering for Ed Pastor. He came to our area. If he won, he would be the first Latino to represent Arizona in the U.S. House of Representatives. And I was just really excited about that. So I worked on his campaign. He won. I graduated, and I figured we'd never probably see each other again. After he was sworn in, he contacted me and he said, "Hey, Charlene, I'm going to open an office in Yuma County, a congressional office," which was history, right? We had never had a congressional office. And he said, "And I want you to run it." I had no idea what he was talking about, but I said yes. And, whisked me off to Washington, D.C., where I got all the training I needed, came back, opened the office, and ran that for 11 and a half years.
Oh, wow.
So
That's a long
that's the
tenure.
basis of everything for me.
Okay.
Because of Ed Pastor, when I ran for the legislature, which I never ever thought I would run and leave my community, but I did. As I went up the ranks in leadership, it was Congressman Ed Pastor that helped me every step of the way. So, I was very fortunate, with Congressman Pastor, Congressman Grijalva. I worked for him for a couple of years, and of course, Governor Janet Napolitano. So those people kind of laid that groundwork for
You
me.
had some excellent mentors, because
sure
that's
did.
like Arizona Democrat royalty, the names you're putting out there
Very, very lucky.
from Ed Pastor, Janet Napolitano. Well, that's a beautiful story. Now you said you're from Yuma, but I have friends from Yuma and some are from Somerton, some are from
Oh,
San Luis. Were you from Yuma proper or?
Yuma proper, but Somerton and San Luis, we represented that area. I did as a
Hmm.
legislator. Congressman Pastor did as a congressman. So those places are very, very close to my heart.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Um, well, the first question I have beyond that was you're now in a very important position, especially with all that's going on in the nation and in our state. Tell us what prompted you to seek out this position as chair of the Arizona Democratic Party.
So I kind of left out a little bit about myself. I actually resigned from the Arizona State Legislature just short of 8 years. I had served 8 years. I received an appointment by President Biden to run the USDA here in Arizona, and it was rural development. And I served there for 3 years, and I had the opportunity to travel all over Arizona. You know, you're born and raised here, and you think you know everything about Arizona, and then you get to travel all over, and you see all the beauty and the needs in our
Yeah,
state.
it's a big
So,
state. Yeah.
yeah, really. So on January 20th, and you know what that date means, I walked out this last year, January, and my job was over. But I had
Hmm.
all this knowledge about rural Arizona. And so when this position became available, and I did have to run for it, I knew that I wanted to get back in there and make a difference in rural Arizona. I feel that not only have the resources dried up from the federal government, I knew that was going to happen. I was sad about that happening, but I knew that we had not been listening to them as Democrats, as a political party. We have urban areas like Maricopa County, Pima County, and somewhat Yuma County, but we really hadn't been getting, that feedback from our rural communities. And I want to be the person to bring that about. So I'm the first party chair in the history of the Democratic Party here in Arizona to ever serve from a rural area. So that's really unique. I've made it my mission to bring in all 15 counties. And so that's what prompted me. I felt that if not now, when? This is the time.
Okay.
It is
Okay.
critical.
So that kind of feeds into my next question. It might be some overlap actually, but what are your priorities for your position and for the Democratic Party? It sounds like it's going to be reaching out to rural, but are there other priorities? And what about just simply getting up to the numbers you need for the Democrats to win races?
Absolutely. That's a goal right there, is to not only, elect Democrats up and down the ballot, but to take over at the Arizona State Legislature. When I was there, my caucus that I served as the Democratic leader was the largest they had seen since the 1960s. We had 29 members. We were 2 members away from even, taking over, or one from evening it out. I think we can get there again. We can win this time, and so that's part of my goal. But we've got a vision here. We need to register Democrats. And when you register someone to vote, you build a relationship. You don't just register them and turn in the sheet. You build a relationship. I still hear from people that, will call me and say, "Hey, I got my ballot. What do I do now? Where do I drop it off? Does it have to, what, all those questions?" Because those are people that I talk to as a legislator, as a school board member, as a representative to congressman, and that I registered to vote. So I want to get back to that. The party needs to start registering people to vote and to build that relationship. So
And
that's one of my goals.
and along those lines, I was looking at the Secretary of State's recent numbers on registered voters, and if this is correct, I hope it is. I got it right off their website, but the GOP has 1.6 million registered voters for about 36%
Mhm.
of the electorate. Democrats have 1.26 million, which is about 28%. And then in this other category, which I'm assuming is independents, there
Yes.
were about 1.54 million, or about 34%. So that's an interesting dynamic that the Democrats now are kind of in a I don't consider it an awkward position, but do you? What do you think about those
I
numbers?
don't. I don't, because we hear from our independents all the time. We know that independents vote Democrat. We know that. Uh, Us Democrats are a little bit of, that have that independent soul. And so when they mark it on their ballot, they mark independent. We get it. We understand it. We'd love to see them come back to the party, to be a part of the party. We need to make sure that we start talking that language. We need for our independents and everyone else to understand that we represent the working class of this state, of this country, but I'm worried about Arizona. We need to tell that story about public education, how we support public education and our public education teachers. And more importantly is we care about healthcare, and we want to make sure that healthcare is there for every Arizonan, whatever that looks like, whatever they need, that we're there for them. Our public universities are under attack. That's, those were our issues. They are our issues, but we just need to start talking about those very same issues that people are talking about when they're sitting at their dinner table.
Okay. And Juan, you might be better equipped to ask this question because you raised it yesterday, but I'm going to raise it again now. Some of the polling from the last election, presidential election, showed that Latino men and Black men, for that matter, seem to be trending towards Republican and towards voting for Trump. That's got to be a big concern, or do you agree with that? And are there plans to try and address that in any way?
Absolutely. And Jonathan, we're already hearing buyer's remorse. Never did they think this is what they were voting for people to be picked up on the streets because of their skin color or because of the place that they work or the language that they speak. That is not what our Latino men that voted for Trump thought that they were voting for. I know some of the issues that I've heard is, hey, I'm working 2 or 3 jobs. I don't mind working 2 or 3 jobs because I'm a hard worker, but even working 2 or 3 jobs, I can't get ahead. And if I can't get ahead, what is going to happen to my children? Juan, you and Jonathan know that we were raised on our children are going to do better than we did. I mean, that's the dream. For us, that's the American dream. Our children will always do better. And I think for a lot of these people, Latinos especially, that voted for Trump, they didn't see that their children were going to do better than they did.
Absolutely.
So I'm very hopeful. I'm hopeful we're getting them back. Like I said, we have to talk to them about these issues and let them know that we're on their side.
I'm so glad to hear that turning the legislature around is a big part of your goal and priorities in what you're doing, because it seems like throughout my adult life, it always seems like there's been a Republican majority in both chambers. I may have missed something, but and it's led to some pretty draconian legislation. I'm thinking right now about this whole voucher system that's being abused and pulling money away from our public schools. Is there a way to turn that around? How do we turn that around?
I mean, it's easy. Again, we have to make sure that the people that are running for the legislature are talking the issues that people care about. And also, I got to tell you, Jonathan, a little secret sauce, and I don't care who sees this and they, adopt this. It's better for our rural areas. But I got to tell you, when I was at the legislature and I would, see the budget, and I thought, nobody back home really knows what we're voting for. They don't really see this budget. And if they see it, it's just too much to understand. It's too much for me to understand. We used to have staff come and explain it to us. So I said, you know what? We need to get on the road. We need to start going out to all these areas that aren't necessarily our areas. And that's what we did. So when I got to the legislature, there was only 22 Democrats walking around. 22 of us. When I left, there was 29. And I attribute it to the fact that our caucus, every single one of them, were out there in different areas, not just their areas, but areas that were very foreign to them. To come from Maricopa County and to go out to Mojave County or to go to La Paz County or Cochise County, it made a difference. I think that's what got us to 29. And that's what I'm doing with this group of people that are going to be running for the legislature this next year. I'm asking them to go out, but get out your comfort zone. We're all comfortable in our own area. We know the schools, we see our teachers out in the audience when we're talking. No, go out to an area that you don't know and start telling them the things that you can do if they vote Democrat.
Okay, a little extra burden on them, but well worth it to get outside their comfort zone. Yeah.
But it's so much fun. It really is.
Okay. Juan, do you have a question?
Yeah. One of the things that I've been concerned about since the last election, and I spent the last election working in the presidential election, working in Arizona, and my concern was, and I noticed it in the office I was working in. I was looking for canvassing a field team for
Okay.
one of the C4s there in Tucson, and I got the feeling sometimes that a lot of the young men uh, were kind of recruited by the older men in terms of, you know, because I would get daily reports from my canvassers of what's going on at the doors when they're talking
Yeah.
to people.
Yeah.
And there was this about a month before I got, my canvassers were telling me, Juan, we're at the doors talking to people, and a lot of the men, and this was men like, 18 to 70, the whole
Yeah.
gamut.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were saying that they were going to vote for Trump and Gallegos. They were
Yeah.
skipping the women.
Uh-huh.
And I found that disturbing on some level, and I couldn't tell if it was coordinated because, we didn't see any overt signs that something was going on, or was it just something men were doing or just talking to each other, you know, which is very grassroots, but um, where are we now with that? Is there going to be, I mean, obviously the parties have always put money into educating certain community groups, certain,
Yeah.
demographics. Should there and is there any effort going on to educating men about why they should vote for the best candidate, not the candidate that shares the same genetic structure as them?
Absolutely. And I think this was such an anomaly. And I listened to Senator Gallego. He was on a podcast a couple of days ago that I listened to, and he talked about that we need to be more authentic. We need to talk
Right,
about, again, those issues, but we have to remind men. Maybe they need this reminder. I don't think they do, but we'll remind them, is that they got to vote in the interests of their wives, their mothers,
right.
their daughters, and remind them that they're coming up the ranks, and how important it is that they, yes, I think in some way we have forgotten our male counterparts. Definitely, I can see that, but that we have to continue to push forward our kids, whoever, whatever, male or female. It's just very important, and we have to stick with the Democratic Party because they care about the working family. Right now we're in this government shutdown because working families are receiving their premium numbers right now for their health care, and they cannot afford it. And it's easy enough to put it aside and say, well, we're not going to have health care, whatever. But when that catastrophic illness hits or that accident
Right.
hits, and they go into a non-existent emergency, hospital that's nearby, we have to think about that. When we think about the first thing, and this is a story I don't like to tell, but I will tell over and over. For a lot of our hospitals, the first place they cut when they're no longer viable, getting a lot of money that they're going to be losing in the next, few months, the first thing they cut is women's health care. That means like obstetrics, because it's one of the most expensive. And so we have to think about the women in our family, daughters, daughter-in-laws, wives, mothers, whatever that looks like. And we have to remind people. So we have to train whoever's going out to the doors to be authentic, to talk about those issues. Yes, I get it, Mr., whatever, and your son, I get that. But just think about, the future and who holds the keys to the future. It's
And
women.
that was an interesting interview that
Okay, yeah.
Senator Gallegos did as well.
Yes.
I was with the New York Times guy, and it seemed like he was trying out, or maybe he's been using new language to appeal to Latino men, talking about, how far your dollar gets and, helping reach the economic dream of America. Is there anything in there? And you're talking the same language when you talk about these things for your daughters and your wives, but maybe it's a little bit more blunt the way he put it. Do you think there's anything to that Democrats might think about adopting?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you mentioned Somerton. The senator did very well, in his votes in Somerton, very well. He came and visited. I listened to him. He actually was at a food truck with men when they were coming out of work and talking to them about the real issues, I mean, and now I really take him at his word that you have to be authentic, because he was just talking about the issues. So we have to adopt that. We don't have to take, the national issues when we go into a small area like Somerton or San Luis or any one of our rural areas. We have to talk about the issues that affect them every day. And
Right.
we have to make sure that they understand that when they vote, they need to vote with their families in mind, no matter who the members of their families are.
Right. And Juan, you mentioned that yesterday they were interested in, do I have enough to fix my roof? Do I have enough to take my family on a
Yeah,
vacation once a year? Am I going to be
right.
able to get my carro fixed and drive something that's reliable? So yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, and I know people, all people are like this, but I'm just drawing from my most, my experience closest to me is my father had a job. He had a full-time job, but he got a part-time job so that he could get braces for me. And I mean, you're able to do that. And today you can't. It's really hard. They're
Mm-mm.
working 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet. Forget about the extras, like you say, vacations or braces or whatever that looks like. They're working 2 or 3 jobs just to keep the family fed and a roof over their heads,
Yeah, man.
because we all know the cost of housing. I did mention that I was the USDA director. We built homes. We went out into rural areas, and that's what we did. We built homes, financed homes. We did self-help housing, and I knew firsthand how important it was for many of these individuals, farm workers, to buy their first home, and what they were sacrificing to build that home and then to maintain that home would probably take 2 or 3 jobs.
Excellent. Juan, do you want to ask the next question? We were talking about getting Latinos elected and Latinas elected statewide. Um,
Right. There's been some noticeable gains in that area. In the past couple of years, we had David Garcia run for superintendent of education. He came up a little short. However, we had the successes of Adrian Fuentes and Senator Gallego. Um, what is being done, or is there anything in the pipeline to elevate some of our Chicano brothers and sisters in Arizona to run for statewide office?
Absolutely. Well, within the Democratic Party, we do have caucuses with our state committee people, and we have the Latino caucus, and we have the Black Engagement Caucus. We have different caucuses, and you can see, the energy in those rooms when we do meet 4 times a year, and we bring people in to as speakers. So we are always nurturing that. We need to bring in more youth in that area. I got to tell you, it's really exciting. I went to the U of A college Dems just recently, about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I get to see the ASU ones all the time here, and they're very active. But I got to go to see in action the U of A Dems. And it's amazing to see these young people that are engaged, that are so diverse in the areas that they come from and who they are. So I think we're doing a really good job of still bringing in a lot of young people that are going to bring fresh new ideas. I can't wait to see that first young person sitting right here in this seat, and that's going to happen. Felt a little guilty myself being here, a little bit older, but I just wanted to, going back to your first question, what prompted me to get here to run for this is I really wanted to build some stability here. I had served as a Democratic leader. I felt like I could bring that same stability here, like I brought also to USDA. You got to remember, when I inherited USDA, we were coming off the Trump administration, the first one, so I had to kind of rebuild. So I'm hoping we're going to rebuild here. We're going to build back better, in the words of Joe Biden. We're going to build back better. I see an enthusiasm here. Every phone call I make, people are excited that we're here, that we're calling them. We're raising money. We're getting people to volunteer. We're building our base. You all know PCs, precinct committeemen, are the base of our party. We're building that up. We're going to have a big roundup with all our PCs, which has never happened before. We're going to do that on a webinar and just get everybody involved and everybody energized, and make sure that they're all out there registering people to vote.
no, very,
Well,
very
that's
good.
encouraging to hear.
Thank you.
Yes.
We're
Uh,
excited.
well, I think I heard you saying, well, let me ask it in a little different way. Now that Senator Gallego and Secretary of State Adrian Fontes have won statewide elections, do you think that glass ceiling has been broken through? I won't consider it broken through until I see a Latina in a statewide position, but you tell me, do you think there's progress?
Well, we broke some with our new Congresswoman-elect Grijalva that cannot get sworn in for crying out loud, but she broke a glass ceiling, and we were so excited about that. And we have a second one in CD6 right on the heels of Congresswoman-elect Grijalva, and that's with Joanne Mendoza. So we're really excited about that. Statewide, I never doubt us, never count us out. We had that Governor Raul Castro that did a great job while he was here. You need only look at the Arizona State Legislature and see the Latinos that are in leadership positions that are there fighting the fight. That's that next generation that will be breaking glass ceilings over and over and over again. We'll hear that shattering.
And that kind of leads, my next question is, Maricopa County is a behemoth, right? What we might be the fourth most populous county in America. And it really, people kind of say, as Maricopa County goes, so goes these statewide elections and other gains. And you being from Yuma and having this commitment to rural America, does that concern you that Maricopa County does have such an impact on all these things?
I love it. There are mentors. It's just amazing, the infrastructure that they have built within the Democratic Party right here. They have amazing legislative chairs, county chair for Maricopa County, and I think we draw from their experience. But my goal, and I've told them, my goal is to move that needle in all those 13 counties to help Maricopa County. I don't want us on election night wondering if our attorney general is going to win and we have to, cure votes to make sure, ballots to make sure, those votes get to our attorney general. I don't want Governor Katie Hobbs going to bed that night wondering if she won. I don't want Adrian Fontes wondering if he's going to be the Secretary of State again. I want them all to win decisively on election night and big wins, 1, 2, 3, and that we take the House and that we up and down the ballot elect Democrats, because it's our year. 2026 is our year. It's our time, and we just need to buckle down and go out there and get it.
Okay. Now, that would be a good ending point for this podcast, but as a journalist, I do have to ask this question as well, and maybe we can still find a way to end on a positive note. But from what I've been reading, it's been a chaotic time for the Democratic Party here in Arizona with the previous chair, who, as you know, they had a vote to oust him, but for 8 months or so, there was a lot going on, a lot of infighting, a lot of people going around the Democratic Party to get their work done. Do you feel like you have a lot of work there to bring that back in sync and make it an effective party?
I love building bridges, and that's what we've been doing. People have been, they ask me this question all the time. We are working with our statewide, Senator Kelly, Senator Gallego, their office, representatives in themselves have very much been in every planning stage with me since I got here. Secretary Fontes, Attorney General Mays, and Governor Hobbs have been right there with me too. I had previous relationships with them, so maybe that transition was easier, but everything is working out smoothly. And like I said, it's been really encouraging just to hear from our Democrats, because I've been calling all over the state. And I think since September 13th, I've made over 1,000 calls. I think that's what they figured. They've got the numbers. And I maybe had 4 or 5 that just thought we couldn't get off our feet, but most of them see progress. They're excited. They're there to help. Our staff, kind of had to rebuild and rebuild the morale. And I think we're there. I know we're there. They're all excited. They're all out and about. So we're going to be visiting every single county, all 15 counties, and making sure that everybody is on board. Absolutely, Jonathan and Juan. I'm very excited about this coming year. 2025 as it ends, and then beginning in 2026. We're going to hit it hard.
Okay. And with that, I think we need to wind down this show, and what a show it's been. Thank you for this awesome information so we can get an understanding of where the Democratic Party is going. And I encourage all our viewers to like and subscribe to Impacto AZ channel. This is how we can continue bringing you this kind of content with your help. So I'd also like to do a shout out for our audio engineer who makes sure our videos and our audio is clear, Ron Oyos. And for Mbakawezi, thank you for joining us, Charlene.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Juan. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Thank you.